It's the beginning of the new school session. We meet Lol. She and her friends Janice and Emily play it cool for school, especially when the guys are around as teenagers do. Lol has her boyfriend who she kisses when she sees him. Her friend Janice has her own boyfriend, Lloyd. The other slightly important character who no one cares about is a loser they call Wen. Kyle is an important friendship Lol has. With others she has to pretend, but they are real with each other and she cherishes this about their relationship. Lol doesn't care much for another of her classmates who she refers to as the Post-it, because of her personality. She describes her as someone who sticks to every guy and pretends to be in love with them. Lol is tired of everyone not being who they are. She is determined to not focus on these things and to have a great year just like the year before when she'd fallen in love with Chad. Despite their newfound and exciting relationship, Lol still has great appreciation for the long one she has with Kyle. There isn't much more to her life than going with the flow of things, for her and the other kids around her. It's still the first day of the first semester and everyone is still catching up. Emily rants onto her friend Janice about Ashley as she flirts with Kyle over her sharing the same handbag she works very hard to get. Wen poses a nuisance to Emily and she brushes him off. Emily is interested in their young handsome teacher instead, who she is attending trig class because of Lol, and her boyfriend are reconnecting. Lol asks him about his time as a counselor and why he never called or texted her. He tells her that she simply didn't receive his text because of the terrible receptions and casually reveals that he also hooked up with someone else while he was there. Lol was not expecting this. She tells him she hooked up with someone too and Chad replies coldly. This leads to a falling out and a hurt Lol walks away. Her friends call out to her but she walks past them to the bathroom where she is in tears. Her perfect year has started turning upside down. She gets a marker and crosses out what she and Chad signed together, the one where they have their initials saying forever. The first day of school is over and she catches the train back home. When she arrives, she goes to the bathroom where her mom and her sister are having a bath. She arrived home early and her mom asks her about what she was supposed to be doing after and she tells her she has a stomach ache. She takes off her clothes to have a shower and her mother questions her shaving choices. Lol discontinues her shower to speak to her mom who is concerned that her behavior is lewd. She is a doting older sister and defends her choices with her mom who starts questioning her teen daughter over her sexual life, wanting her daughter to tell her if she ever starts being intimate with men. She is upset and tells her mom she is no longer a baby and storms out. The relationship of this mother and daughter duo is tense, as Lol is a growing teenager but her mother's attitude makes it seem like she doesn't feel like she is being listened to. Lol however still wants the comfort of her mom and her mother Anne is happy to respond. The next day Anne drives Lol to school. She complains about Lol being unprepared, taking advantage of her and taking her things without permission. She tries to connect with her as she takes her to school but Lol's attention is somewhere else which annoys her at first but the two get by. Lol and Kyle get in trouble for being late. The two however don't take it seriously, and even make fun of their teacher. Kyle asks Lol if she's made up with Chad. He reassures her that if it were him he would never let her go. He tells her that he would like for them to remain friends and Lol feels the same way. He brushes her hair after. Chad watches the two of them interact from his class window. Emily is swooning over her teacher. She imagines him in a sexual and reciprocal light. She isn't the only one, it's his class filled with mostly female students. This makes Mr. Ross visibly uncomfortable as Kyle walks into the class. He sits next to Chad who wasn't happy after seeing him and Lol together. Emily speaks to Mr. Ross about tutoring but he tells her he is already booked. She comes onto him strong and he tries to make his stance clear. Emily mistakes his nervousness for genuine feeling as she relays the story to her friends who believe she is delusional while they're walking past Lol's ex. Janice points him out and asks Lol if they should still go there. Lol tells her that they should, despite Ashley. Ashley is flirting with Kyle and Chad when the girls walk in. Chad tells Lol he needs to talk to her but when she goes to hear him out he only demeans her as someone who is giving herself out to everyone making her leave her friends. Lol is extremely angry at Chad. She regrets ever being with him. When she accidentally picks up the phone and listens in on a conversation between her two separated parents that leads her to believe they are still seeing each other. She does not like this news as she doesn't want to relive a repeat of the past. Lol is in the dining as her mother helps her siblings with their homework. She is suspicious after finding out about her and her father that her mother might be hiding even more from her if she can hide this. Later that evening Elaine and Ad hook up without their children's knowledge. Lol's mother is conflicted about still seeing her ex-husband. Lol and her family are trying to have dinner. Emily messages her to ask if they are going to the Battle of the Bands. Lol says that they are so they can support Kyle but not Chad. Meanwhile both their brothers are being annoying. Kyle receives a phone call from his mother, annoyed that he is not yet at home. Because of this he has to leave band practice. His bandmates argue that they need to practice. Chad even makes a cruel joke to him for leaving because his mother told him to. The next day the boys hand out flyers for their performance at the school. Lol is also helping out. She becomes annoyed when she sees Ashley doing the same because she doesn't like her. Ashley even shows off her interest in Kyle as a way to spite Lol during the band's performance. They all walk back after the show. Chad's arm around Ashley's shoulder, and the girls mimic Ashley as she tries to be supportive to the band. Kyle frees himself from Ashley giving Lola the opportunity to show Kyle support. He reciprocates this gesture by pulling her closer by the hip. The two stare lovingly into each other's eyes. They're about to kiss when Chad interrupts them by asking Kyle to catch up. Kyle, upon arriving home, hides his guitar before sitting down and having dinner with his parents, who question where he has been. His mom cheerfully welcomes him, but there is tension between Kyle and his father. Kyle tries to connect with his father by telling him about the Battle of the Bands and its prospects. His father bulldozes over the statement, asking him to pass the salt instead of answering him. His father's response and continuous dismissal doesn't elicit a great response from Kyle. His mother tries to step in, but his father dismisses her. Anne breaks her heel at the courthouse and is helped by a stranger on a motorcycle. He offers her a ride and she sees something she likes when he offers her the helmet. She feels like an idiot for running her mouth about cops and the justice system when she figures out he is part of the system. He drops her at home and her friends are more enthusiastic than she is about finding interest in the cop. Lol shows Jeremy a tape of Kyle's band playing. Meanwhile, as the adults are having their dinner, they discuss their inaccurate perceptions of how their children really are, being absolutely sure that their children do not smoke when they are smoking in Lol's room, just as they're doing at the table. Lol asks Jeremy to sleep with her. She reveals she can't do it with Kyle because she already lied to him that she did. Anne finds out that her ex-husband is sleeping with other people, which makes her uncomfortable. She confronts him when he comes over and they're in bed. Chad and Lol get into a physical altercation when he calls her derogatory names after he keeps picking on her. Kyle comes to her defense, but she still gets in trouble in school and with her mom, who she confesses to what has been going on with her. Her mom's temper starts to subside upon hearing what had happened. Later that evening, she thanks Kyle for supporting her. The two spend more and more time together. Lol has fallen in love with Kyle, but she fears exposing it would end their relationship. Lol's mom goes on a trip. She lies to her that it is with friends, but it is actually with her father. Lol is having a party at her home with her classmates. Emily sees her, and one has the same t-shirt as the guy who she was on the chat with, and she feels embarrassed. Lol's grandmother, who was left in charge of her, is passed out on the floor, while the kids have a full blown-out party. Drunk on the euphoria of the moment, Kyle tells Lol he wants to kiss her. The two's interactions are interrupted by their friends, who take Lol dancing. While she's dancing sexily, Kyle gets up and kisses her. They almost spend the night together but still find it a bit awkward. Lol's mom comes in the next day earlier than expected and sees the house trashed. She and Lol get into an argument and she tells her she's canceling her Paris trip. Anne cut her trip early because of an altercation with her ex-husband. On a call, she tells him that they should stop seeing each other as more than just co-parents. Chad hits on a woman who he thinks is Ashley's sister but turns out to be her stepmother. The teacher asks the rowdy crowd to settle down while she introduces the detective. The teen girls admire his handsomeness. He is the same cop that gave Anne a lift home, and they both recognize each other when he walks in. The teen girls praise him for his good looks, even Lol. Anne shushes her because she is embarrassed. Chad gazes jealousy as Kyle and Lol are affectionate with each other. The detective begins to speak to the board class on He, however, catches their attention and gives them an important discussion on use. Anne tries to leave early, but things don't go as planned. Janice and Lol watch Anne and the detective, to Lol's horror, when Ashley passes by with Kyle. The detective offers to buy Anne a drink. Lol asks her mother if she can go to Janice's place, but she doesn't approve. Lol leaves looking for Kyle. She hears two people hooking up in the bathroom and sees the red bag Ashley was carrying outside the toilet stall. Lol is devastated and she thinks Kyle has betrayed her with Ashley. Lol asks Ashley about it and she doesn't deny it, telling her it was great. When Kyle comes, she interrogates him the same way, but he doesn't seem to know what she is talking about. An angry Lol storms off. The bathroom door opens and it turns out it was Wen and her friend Emily, who she warns not to follow her. Kyle goes after Lola and he finally catches up with her, but she doesn't believe Kyle when he tries to explain that he wasn't in the restroom with Ashley. This leads them to break up. Both go their separate ways, utterly heartbroken. Lola goes home in tears as her grandmother tries to console her. In the hallway, Lola tells Emily about Kyle, and Emily starts to feel guilty knowing she was the one in the bathroom stall, causing the misunderstanding, but is too embarrassed to tell her the truth. There is a lot of tension between Lola and Kyle. Lola feels absolutely betrayed by Kyle. Report card comes in and the parents are not happy with their kids' results. They are all very disappointed in their kids. Lola's mom is especially living, but Lola doesn't even care much at this point. Doesn't even care about her grades. All she cares about is Kyle and what they did to her. The kids are back in school. Lola convinced Jeremy to help make Kyle jealous by making out with Jeremy in front of Kyle. Kyle is completely riled up by it but pretends not to care. She even unfriended him on social media. The kids are in a restaurant having lunch. Kyle asks Lola about Jeremy. She replies by asking him about Ashley. He denies that he is seeing Ashley and wants them to talk. A jealous Chad watches the two from his seat when the two are speaking. Ashley arrives and Chad invites her to sit with them. Kyle doesn't like that he does that because he doesn't want to ruin things any further with Lola. The girls are not the least bit happy to see her when she arrives and goes to sit next to them. Lola notices Kyle's discomfort and starts to think she might actually be able to forgive him. James and Anne are having dinner. Anne opens up and shares her frustration about Lola and her argument to James. She is frustrated about the kind of mother who she chooses to be and how complex it is to be a mother. In every instance, Anne is unable to help herself from comparing everything terrible in her life to something that offends James's profession. But he doesn't really mind this as he uses it to tease her instead. In fact, he is completely sympathetic and advises her on a new approach, and Anne takes it into consideration. Meanwhile, Kyle gets off the phone with Lola, who he is supposed to be meeting to talk to at her house. He is about to leave when his father walks in and they get into an argument over the belonging Kyle's he had found. He is outraged by while Kyle acts entitled and like he doesn't care how angry he is at him until his father breaks his guitar and takes his phone. This leaves Lola thinking she's been stood up. James and Anne are done with their dinner. On their way out, Anne thanks James for being supportive. James leans in and kisses her when Elaine walks in, making things intense and awkward. James is not deterred by the scene that just unfolded in his pursuit for Anne. Emily is excited to see Mr. Ross in the grocery store and pretends to bump into him. Emily's mother finds her distracted. She introduces her family to Mr. Ross, who tries to apologize for not being able to tutor Emily. Emily's mother is confused about the statement, and Emily, for the fear of being caught lying by her mother, signals to Mr. Ross that she lied and he plays along. Emily's mother is unimpressed with Mr. Ross, commenting on the fact that he is too handsome to be a teacher. Emily is on the phone with Lola, and while discussing Mr. Ross, she's also on a video call with a guy in a muscle suit who turns out to be Wen. Lola is still bitter about Kyle and Ashley. This prompts a guilt-stricken Emily to confess. She tries to explain why she couldn't tell her, but Lola is too upset that her friend would do something like this that would lead to her and Kyle breaking up. She ends the call mid-conversation and immediately texts Kyle after, who is still unable to access his phone, to apologize. Anne tells Lola that she isn't grounded anymore and she is allowed to go on her trip to Paris. She is so excited. She gets up to hug her before she has even finished talking. The various girls and their mothers start packing for the trip. Lola is still angry at Emily for not telling her, but everything seems to be good again between Lola and Kyle. They finally arrived in Paris, or so they thought before finding out they were actually 20 minutes outside Paris, and were about to be picked up by families in Paris hosting their stay. Things start to become awkward for Lloyd. Janice and Ashley are forced to eat snails. Emily and Lola figure out they forgot to pack phone adapters, and the families all seem to need some adjusting for the kids. Meanwhile, back at home, Anne is about to go out on a date with James and her mother begins asking her about him. Emily and Lola are in the bedroom talking, and Emily finally comes clean and tells Lola that she was with Wen in the restroom, in which they both start to laugh. They took a tour around Paris to see the beautiful city and have fun creating memorable moments. Meanwhile, James and Anne are having dinner at home with Anne's friend. Emily is on the dining table unable to eat the food on the plate in front of her. Lola and Kyle try to sneak successfully. It seems that Lola was busted, but Wen, who was under the bed sheets waiting for Emily, covered for Lola. Kyle manages to convince the family for Lola to stay with him and they spend the night together intimately. The trip finally comes to an end. Lola and Kyle are texting and Lola is trying to keep the relationship a secret. Kyle disagrees initially, but he is powerless to the already made decision. Anne walks in on Lola, who quickly closes her laptop. They have a small conversation as both Lola and Anne don't really want to talk about what happened during their time away from each other. The kids meet up and things are a little awkward between Lola and Kyle. Kyle and Chad finally have the long-awaited talk about Kyle seeing Lola, and Chad is okay with it since they are like brothers. Kyle tells Lola about the good news and they finally begin to be open with their relationship. In class, there's a little interaction between Chad, Kyle, Ashley, and Lola as they do a practical on a rabbit's heart. Meanwhile, Anne is going through Lola's room looking for her sweater as she stumbles upon Lola's diary, and she proceeds to read the contents of the diary. She finds out everything, from her affair with Kyle to her relationship with Jeremy. She is utterly shocked and in disbelief. She meets up with her therapist to talk about the incident as she's told to confront Lola about the matter at hand. She then meets up with Elaine, who isn't really the happiest to be there. He is still quite upset at Anne seeing someone new. He speaks to her with animosity. Anne can barely believe how he's acting. Wanting to divert the conversation from this, she tells him about Lola taking drugs and sleeping around. Elaine visibly couldn't hide his surprise as he spits out his tea, but then proceeds to use the situation to insult Anne still. Anne becomes extremely angry and walks out while laying an insult of her own. Anne, who is in the car waiting for Lola, isn't happy with her daughter's friendship with her friend Emily. After a little argument, Anne finally comes clean about reading Lola's diary. Lola is very angry after hearing this and cusses her mother, which led to Anne slapping Lola and increasing the tension, causing Lola to storm out of the car heading to her room. Anne tries to apologize for what just happened, only to find out that Lola has her bag packed, ready to go to her father's house. At her father's house, Lola is texting Emily. She is upset about her mother invading her privacy, and reading her diary. Meanwhile, Emily is texting Wen, who is being tutored by Mr. Ross. He tries to stop him from distracting himself with his phone but accidentally sees an inappropriate display photo when Emily texts him. The next day, Emily goes to thank Mr. Ross for not telling her mother about her lie. He praises her for being smart while encouraging her to not lie and for her to also try and get Wen, who she was talking to while he was tutoring him, to focus. She is completely embarrassed when he talks about her and Wen. The anger Lola has for her mother has heavily subsided. She is full of dread and regret over her mother discovering things about her. She feels like this would make her mother see her differently and not love her as much as she does. She writes to her mom about not wanting to make her sad. Lola really misses her mom. Her mom reads the message and misses her daughter just as much. Lola's father drives her back to her mother's house. Lola walks in and kisses her mom, who does the same with as much love and passion. Their bond is just as strong as they once again apologize to each other for what has happened. At school, the girls hand out flyers to other students as they pass them by, inviting them to the Battle of the Bands. Lola is even smiling and getting along with Ashley, who at the beginning of the school year she couldn't stand. Kyle can't go home because of his father. He wouldn't be let out, which would interrupt their show. This is an unexpected hiccup and they need to find a solution. Lola already starts asking her mom for favors, as the solution they've found to practicing is to practice at Lola's house. When Kyle's father gets home, he doesn't see him and is already in the mood to punish him when he picks up the Battle of the Bands flyer from his bed. Kyle and his bandmates are playing at the Battle of the Bands to a cheering crowd. Kyle's father walks in and he sees his son performing on stage and is in shock at all the admiration and the amount of people watching his son perform. They end their performance winning the Battle of the Bands. At the end, he sings a heartwarming song for Lola. His father waves to him from the crowd, incredibly impressed by his son in this extremely heartwarming moment between father and son, with his father seeming to finally accept him, but also Kyle and Lola. Meanwhile, we see shots of Anne, in love and happy like she deserves to be in a healthy relationship. With James, she's finally able to move forward and not stay lodged to the past or her fears. In the end, both mother and daughter find love with people who respect them, people who accept them for who they are, with no more pretense and lies. Each bond is made stronger and better when everyone is able to understand each other more and feel accepted for who they are.